gentlemen, we will call to order the March 1st, 2012 meeting of the Clarksville City Council. We will begin with the prayer and the pledge. Councilman Red will lead us in the prayer, and Councilman Lewis will lead us in the pledge. Members, please register your attendance. Madam Clerk, take the attendance.
Mayor, all members are present with the exception of Councilwoman Candy Johnson and Councilman Joel Wallace.
All right, we're going to begin tonight. 39 is adopted. Thank you very much. We'll now go back to the beginning of the calendar, and at this point we have Planning Commission public hearing. Councilman Grubbs.
Thank you, Mayor. Madam Clerk, will you please read Ordinance 65, 66, 67, and 68?
Ordinance 65, 2011-12, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Montgomery County government, Clint Camp agent, for zone change on property at South Jordan Drive and Arrowwood Drive from R4 multiple family residential district to C5 highway and arterial commercial district. Ordinance 66, 2011-12, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Barry S. Hedrick for zone change on property at Franklin Street and North Reynolds Street from R2 single family residential district to M2 general industrial district. Ordinance 67, 2011-12, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Hawkins and Lafferty for zone change on property at the terminus of Ann Drive from AG agricultural district to R2 single family residential district. Ordinance 68, 2011-12, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Stephanie Lee Schote and others, Jeff Burkhart agent, for zone change on property at Kennedy Road and Trenton Road from AG agricultural district to R2 single family residential district.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor, I move we go into public hearing.
Motion properly seconded. We are in public hearing.
Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the council may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under the appropriate committee report. Ordinance 44, 2011-12, second reading, authorizing extension of utilities to the Winters property on Ashland City Road, request of Britt Little, Weekly Brothers Engineering on behalf of Daniel Welch. Ordinance 45, 2011-12, second reading, amending the official code relative to placement of garbage cans. Ordinance 51, 2011-12, second reading, amending the FY12 General Fund operating budget for the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. Ordinance 52, 2011-12, second reading, amending the FY12 Parks and Recreation budget to transfer funds for purchase of a bucket truck. Ordinance 53, 2011-12, second reading, amending the FY12 Legal Department operating budget for professional services. Ordinance 54, 2011-12, second reading, amending the FY12 airport budget for terminal construction. Ordinance 56, 2011-12, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of William and Trina Finley, Barry Goad, select home building agent, for zone change on property at Wyndham Road and Ashland City Road from R1 single family residential district to R2A single family residential district. Ordinance 58, 2011-12, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of John E. Kane III for zone change on property at Lady Marion Drive and Tobacco Road from R4 multiple family residential district to C5 highway and arterial commercial district. Ordinance 59, 2011-12, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Austin P. for zone change on property at North Henderson Way and O'Malley Drive from R1 single family residential district to R1A single family residential district. Ordinance 60, 2011-12, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of J&N Enterprises and care of Marshall Ross for zone change on property at US Highway 79 and Cynthia Drive from R1 single family residential district to R2 single family residential district. An adoption of minutes, regular session, February 2nd. Approval of board appointments, Residential Development Commission, Jeff Burkhart and Candy Johnson, January 2012 through December 2013.
Councilman Burkhart.
Mayor, I'll be abstaining on ordinance 59 and also item 12 for the board appointments, please.
Councilman Allen.
Mayor, I'd like to pull ordinance number 59, 2011-12.
All right. Motion's been made to pull that ordinance. It's been properly seconded. That ordinance will be pulled off the consent agenda. Councilman Stewart.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I'd like to register a no vote on ordinance 45, please.
Councilwoman Jones.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to register a no vote on ordinance 54 and also on item number 12. I'd like to also go no.
So noted. And before we vote on this ordinance, council members, I want something that I had meant to do previously, bring this to your attention previously, but I'm going to do this now. I think it is important for me to inform the council of a charter provision that has recently been brought to my attention, or that I discovered upon reading the charter very carefully as part of the charter revision process. And I think it's important to let the council know what Section 12 in Article 2 states. And I'm just going to read it. Except as otherwise provided in this charter, a majority vote of the members of the City Council present shall decide the action of the council at that meeting. But the enactment, amendment, or rescission of ordinances shall be by majority vote of the entire membership of the City Council. Now, what that does is means that it requires, in order for an ordinance to pass, be repealed, or be amended, it requires a majority vote of the full membership. That means 7 votes, even if people are abstaining or are not present. So that's what the charter says. I'm informing you of that. Now that it's been brought to my attention and I'm aware of it, we're going to enforce it. Now, I will say this has been taken care of. It had been taken care of in the previous charter revision that was voted on twice by this council and sent to the legislature that didn't pass. It's also taken care of in the current charter revision document that's being considered to go up to the legislature. So just so you're aware of that, that is being taken care of. But because I am now aware of it, because I have read it, because I understand it, it's going to be enforced. So if there is an ordinance that needs to be adopted, it must pass by 7 affirmative votes. Councilman Redd.
Did you also say, Mayor, that for something to fail or pass, it would have to have, could you actually?
No, I'll read it again. It says the enactment, amendment, or rescission of an ordinance. You mean to read it again?
Yes, please.
Except as otherwise provided in this charter, a majority vote of the members of the City Council present shall decide the action of the council at that meeting. But the enactment, amendment, or rescission of ordinances shall be by majority vote of the entire membership of the City Council. That's Section 12 in Article 2. And if I could, Mr. Baker, if you don't mind, if you could come up and confirm.
It says what it says. She's right. It's
So
if it's an ordinance, it has to pass by 7 votes, no matter how many people are missing or absent. You know, ordinarily, 7 would be a simple majority if all 13 are present. But if you have somebody that's either abstaining or is absent, then yeah, this could make a difference. So, yes, sir.
So in order to pass, it has to have 7 votes
Correct.
on an ordinance, any ordinance?
Any ordinance.
Okay, but not necessarily a resolution.
Doesn't say resolution. It specifically says ordinance.
Thank you.
Councilman Allen?
So are we going back? I find it simply amazing that this would come up at this present time.
Well, quite frankly, I do too. so-
I really find it amazing, Mayor. And so that means, are we going to go back and everything we voted on, go check the records? That means it's no good.
No,
No.
that's incorrect. And Mr. Baker, if
The,
you want to.
the law is any ordinance that has been codified, there's a state statute that says once an ordinance is actually codified, meaning it's put in the book basically, then the actual ordinance cannot be challenged. The enactment to it or alleged defects in how it was passed cannot be challenged. You can still challenge on constitutional grounds, but you can't challenge it on grounds that it was, didn't pass by a correct majority or something like that. For things that have not been codified ordinances, there's a line of case law that says if it's been passed and there's been no objection at the time, then it's good law, even if it did not pass technically by what the charter required.
Well, I mean, I still find it amazing that this would come up on, because I pulled out Ordinance 59, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that, all of a sudden it's pulled now because you got to have 7 votes, and some people are not here, and we hadn't been told this all along. And I just know without a shadow of a doubt, and I want the public to know, that I believe that this is happening because we have a home builder that's on the council that's trying to push things through that are not appropriate for this ward nor this city. And as long as we continue to allow that to happen, we will never move forward. And I know this is not a surprise. No, this is not just all of a sudden, Lance. You're the attorney. If we've been doing this wrong, we've been doing this wrong for all these years, and nobody has ever caught it and said, hey, you can't do it that way.
Well,
but now all of a sudden tonight, I happen to read it.
Let me address that, if I may. I'm not the one that discovered it. To my knowledge, nobody has ever followed this before
Why we follow it tonight then?
Because the mayor found this, but it had nothing to do. We actually discussed this about 2 weeks ago for the first time when we were studying the charter revisions. And that's how this first came up. It had nothing to do with any agenda item tonight. I mean,
I personally feel it's to assist Mr. Burkhart in this ordinance and his other ordinance. That's my personal opinion. And I have a right to state it.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion. I have a right to state it, and I want the public to know that I think that's what's going on.
Wait just a minute. Councilman Stewart, I know you're on the list, but you're not next. So we're going to go in the order that they've asked to be recognized. Councilman Summers? Were you?
I didn't realize I'd hit the button.
Okay. Councilman Red? Well, you turned it off. Okay, now you are.
Well, let me make sure. Now, Lance.
Yes, sir.
On item 4, the other zoning case, it failed and did not get a majority or vote
That's
to
correct.
fail. So does it still have to wait the 1 year?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
Okay. I mean, because it was a failed item. Okay. So it doesn't take a majority necessarily to fail. If something fails, it can fail by not having the 7 votes. Or,
It didn't pass.
Everybody has assumed all along, and I think this has probably gone on for no telling how long. I guess forever. Has assumed that ordinarily a simple majority is what it takes to pass an ordinance, and that's true ordinarily. That's true in Robert's rules, but no one caught it until the mayor did, which was in preparation. We were going over proposed changes in the charter because of the charter revision process, and there was I'll tell you how it really first kind of came about is because we were looking, or she was looking at the veto power, and as all y'all know, you've been sitting on the charter commission meeting, there was a lot of discussion, and there has been a lot of discussion a long time about whether or not what does a majority mean? does it mean a majority of the members present and voting, a majority of the members present, or does it mean a majority of the full membership? Robert's rules, the default provision is it means a majority means the members present and voting. But you can define a majority to mean something else, and this charter provision, which is not part of the
And I remember
article
the committee
that
we went
deals
over
with
this
the mayor's
part, too.
powers. It's set off over here in another article. It deals with the city council, and it says when you read it close, it doesn't say majority. It says a majority of the full membership.
The majority of full members. Okay.
That means 7 members.
In the committee, I remember we went over that pretty much at length about whether or not it should be.
Yeah.
And and we have had times too. I remember when John Aldridge used to sit here, he would just say question, and then that would stop all discussion. And it was years later that we found out what he was saying was I make a motion to end discussion, and
Right.
he actually had to vote on it. So I'll give the mayor the benefit of the doubt, because I certainly never saw that in the charter either.
I'm just telling you the truth. She came to me about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when the veto power discussion was coming up. We were talking about it, and that's when she told me, "Hey, look at this."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Wow, I never noticed that before."
And I never knew too
I don't think anybody has.
that it took more than a majority, I think, to end discussion at one time.
Well, it doesn't take more than a majority. It's a majority. It's still a majority, but it's a majority of the full council.
Right. Mhm.
Yes.
Of the 12.
13.
13.
That's correct. Councilman Stewart?
My question actually may clarify some of the confusion. And I think Councilman Allen may be misunderstanding, and I'm just making sure I'm understanding this. So there are 11 of us here, including the mayor right now. So if 6 people voted yes and 5 people voted no, it would still fail because it didn't receive 7 votes.
If it's an ordinance, that's correct.
So if something received 6 votes, it still would fail because it wouldn't have 7 votes. So if there were not 7 yes votes, the ordinance would fail.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct, and
So
I'm glad that you
example-
pointed that out,
right.
because it's not that this helps. Actually, Councilman Burkhart is hurt
Correct.
either way, because that particular ordinance didn't get 7
Correct.
votes,
And he's
regardless
upset.
some people had
Yeah.
voted.
It's not because of you. It's not because of you. You're going to help him all you can.
No, if I had voted, it still wouldn't be 7 votes. So I wanted you to be aware of that, and I wanted
want
all
you
the
to be
council
aware of
members
it.
to be
Okay.
aware of exactly
All right.
what the issue is.
All righty. Yes, ma'am.
So, that's just, Councilwoman Jones?
Mayor, I believe his is on this topic, if you'll call on me after,
Okay.
Councilman Redd.
Councilman Redd?
I was just wanting to ask, Mayor, if we should fix this before next meeting. Even, I know we do have the charter revision, but this item, in my opinion, might ought to be sent to the state legislature, even if we got to do a special call meeting and to rectify this one.
That wouldn't help, because it's still got to go, it's still got to be passed. It can't be rectified before the next meeting.
Okay. Well, I mean, quicker than if it's just put in the charter revision. If we can put it,
No.
not before the next meeting, but, gosh, okay.
Councilwoman Jones? Oh, I'm sorry.
Executive session. At executive session, I asked you for information on item number 12, and I didn't receive it.
And I apologize for that. I thought your question had been answered, because I thought we had some testimony from someone who came up and explained what...
No, we were
That-
going to get other board members or commission members. But what I would like to state, and I don't want it to appear that I have a pile of rocks for Councilman Burkhart either, but I think we have to, at this point in time, because we are trying to run an open government, we need to make sure we have no visual impropriety to the public. I have nothing against Mr. Burkhart, and I just think if we're going to do a residential development commission, I don't know that a contractor is the best person to put on there to self-regulate, whether it be him or someone else. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I feel, and so that's the reason I ask you to designate me as a no vote.
Okay. all right. Okay, any other discussion on the consent agenda? Councilman Allen, I want to make sure you understand that my announcement of what we have discovered in the charter has nothing to do with the ordinance that you're referring to with respect to Councilman Burkhart. There would not be 7 votes, period, for that ordinance. It fails. So there was no help to be given to Councilman Burkhart in any sense of the word with respect to that particular ordinance, regardless.
Okay.
So,
Well, you still didn't change my mind. I still think you all are together, and you all work together, and you all team together, and it's apparent. So it didn't change my mind. Nor will it change the public's mind when they look at this.
I'm very confused at this, but anyway.
Don't be.
We'll move on. Any other discussion?
I wanted to register a no vote on
yes.
item number 6.
Okay. All right, we're on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion is made, properly seconded on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, do you have registered all the various abstentions and no votes?
May I go over those?
Yes.
Councilman Burkhart abstained on ordinance 59 and item 12. Councilman Allen pulled ordinance 59 for separate consideration. Councilman Stewart, no vote on ordinance 45. Councilwoman Jones, no vote on ordinance 54 and number 12. Councilman Redd, no vote on number 6.
Item 54.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, we're ready for the vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor of the consent agenda vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Let every member cast your vote. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
10 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
The consent agenda passes. We'll now take up the item that had been bumped from the consent agenda. That is Ordinance 59, 2011, 12. Do we have a motion on Ordinance 59, 2011, 12?
Mayor, I make a motion that ordinance 59, 2011, 12 be brought to the floor for approval.
All right, we have a motion properly seconded on Ordinance 59, 2011, 12. Councilman Allen.
Yes. This was discussed on last month, and I provided, actually the residents have provided a lot of information. You all have been receiving the emails. I'll restate my concern. The same developer, Mr. Burkhart, that built Woodstock, it's the same developer that's trying to build this add-on to this subdivision. There are over 144 signatures, and some of them were able to come tonight, so if you could stand, that are standing in opposition to this ordinance. I do ask that you take into consideration all the information. I'm sure you've been receiving the emails. We have to do what's right on behalf of the citizens and those that live over in Patrick Place, not just the home builders and those who serve on the council to please themselves. So I ask that you vote no on this.
Councilman Redd.
I have a mayor question. I have a question, Mayor. And perhaps a motion. For a secondary motion or a secondary item, like a motion to postpone, now, a simple majority, that's not
That is
like
correct.
an ordinance. That won't take 7 members of the council.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this item until the next regular scheduled council meeting.
There's a motion properly seconded to postpone Ordinance 59 to the next regularly scheduled council meeting. Any discussion? Councilman Lewis.
No, not on that, Mayor.
Okay. Any discussion? Ready for the vote on the motion to postpone. All those in favor of postponement, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Let every member cast their vote. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
3 yes, 6 no, 1 abstain.
Motion to postpone fails. We're back on ordinance 59. Any further discussion? Yes, Councilman Lewis.
I would like to ask if I could ask Jack Fraser to come up.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes.
The question I have, Mr. Fraser, is the sinkhole issue and the drainage issue there.
Okay. I have looked at the area in the field myself. Went out last week and looked at it. I'm about 90% sure that's not a sinkhole. That's no farm pond where they pushed up in a draw. I've informed the engineer that as they get in there and they start digging and they get their plans approved, which they are not approved yet, that we'll come out and look at that and make further determination at that time. As far as draining the area into the creek, we're not going to object to that. The drainage area coming into that area of the creek out of Kentucky is 191 square miles. They're talking about adding 26 acres. It will not affect the flood plain.
Okay. And if it comes up as a sinkhole, the building's going to stop anyway.
They're going to have to do something different, yes, sir.
Okay.
Councilwoman Jones.
I just want to share with you, after the executive session and after looking at this, I talked with the street department who said they would be draining or giving them the opportunity to drain into the creek. And it spurred my memory that I believe this creek is a designated blueways for the city of Clarksville, and we've received $140,000 in grant monies that had to be evaluated. Silt conditions had to be looked at. We had land donated to this blueways by the Clark family, I think over 10 acres. I think it'd be counterproductive for us to arbitrarily start dumping runoff water into a creek that we're wanting to use for recreational and increased tourism value of the city. So in that one respect, I would ask that you not support this this plan to dump into this creek. West Fork Creek is a valuable asset to the city.
Councilman Grubbs.
Without objection, I'd like to have Ms. Smithson come forth, please.
Seeing no objection, Ms. Smithson.
Audrey, a couple of questions. First of all, on first reading, there wasn't, to my memory, a lot of discussion about this ordinance. What was the vote of the Planning Commission and the staff's recommendation?
For this rezoning case, both the staff and the Planning Commission unanimously approved this property to be rezoned to R1A.
Was there any issue or concern about a sinkhole on this property?
During the public hearing, I am not aware of one. The staff in the department comments, we did receive from the street department that they had no concerns.
In the emails I've been getting, there's been some concern about going from the R1 to the R1A and the size of the lots. Could you just briefly walk us through the interior and exterior lots and the clustering of this, and just kind of briefly as you can?
Okay. The applicant, Mr. Burkhart, has submitted a preliminary plat to the Regional Planning Commission, and it was considered for a vote at our last Planning Commission meeting. It was deferred by the Planning Commission. The staff was, however, recommending approval, subject to normal preliminary conditions. Mr. Burkhart has chosen what is called a cluster option. It's a development option that is available to the developers if they so choose. It's allowed in most single-family residential zoning classifications. And what a cluster option does, technically it allows for the developer to offset his lot sizes without increasing his lot density within the development in exchange for dedicated open space, sidewalks, and underground utilities. If Mr. Burkhart's rezoning is approved, then Mr. Burkhart can apply for the cluster option through the subdivision process. And what that will allow Mr. Burkhart to do is the perimeter lots within this section of the proposed development, they will be allowed to be reduced one zoning classification. So Patrick Place is currently zoned R1. What that will allow Mr. Burkhart to do on his perimeter lots is reduce those lots, those perimeter lots, to an R1A size. The difference in R1 is 15,000 square feet. The difference in R1A is 12,000 square feet. On the interior lots within the ordinance, it allows for your interior lots to go to a minimum of 5,000 square feet. Okay. Is there any other?
All that you're talking about is in this book right here,
That is
correct?
correct. It is part of the zoning ordinance. And not
sorry, go
only
ahead.
does he, if he chooses the cluster option, he has to meet the requirements of that ordinance along with the subdivision regulations.
How many lots will he gain if it passes?
If he develops this property as R1, Mr. Burkhart could obtain up to 86 lots. There is a lot yield formula within the cluster ordinance. If this property is zoned R1A, there is a lot yield of 107 lots. That means Mr. Burkhart could not exceed those lot yield requirements.
Right, so what would be the gain?
What would be the gain? Well, I can't speak for Mr. Burkhart's development specifically.
As a representative of the Planning Commission.
But in a clustered option overlay, it allows for the developer to obviously put his lots closer together, which saves him money on infrastructure, roads, utilities, for example. It allows him to set aside the open space, which his open space could be areas that have some topographic challenges or drainage issues. You cannot exceed 50% of your open space area within a drainage area. The open space areas are supposed to be used for the residents of that development. Another option and benefit of a cluster, it definitely encourages infill development where you have existing infrastructure, as our land use plan supports.
My last question is, irregardless, if it's R1, there could be a subdivision built there.
That is correct.
And the drainage and the plat, it's all been approved, so it could happen.
The drainage plans, to my knowledge, have not been approved.
Well, I'm talking about preliminary from the street department. So,
That's correct.
but at R1, there can be a subdivision built there.
There it is correct. There were road stubs left there for future development. And the property is zoned R1 and can be developed today under R1 standards.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Allen.
I think she hit on the main thing, and I just want to break it down in simple terms. It's just a matter of zoning this from R1 to R1A means smaller lots, means more profit for the builders at the expense of those who are living there and their properties and the cohesiveness of the neighborhood. We cannot continue to allow home builders to profit on behalf of those that are already established there. I do ask again that you vote no.
I would ask the audience if we can.
You hadn't asked them any other meeting, they always yell out and you never say anything.
Councilman Allen, I don't think so now. That's the
They do it
rules
all the
in
time.
this body, is that we ask that the audience not shout out and not comment at the time, and I would ask that of anybody on any vote on any motion.
Okay, go back and replay the videos, is all I ask you.
Councilman Allen,
Go back and replay the videos.
at this point, we're going to move on. Any other discussion? Seeing none, are we ready for the vote on Ordinance 59? Those in favor of Ordinance 59, vote yes. Those opposed, vote no. Let every member cast your vote. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
No, one abstain.
Ordinance 59 fails.